Hello, I'm Chris Rose of Handgun Hunting Afield. Today we're going to go over a couple of different topics, one of those being mounting optics on Spohr revolvers, something I've needed to do for a while, but just haven't had a good reason to do so. But now I have the perfect reason. I got this brand new prototype from Ultradot, their reflex sight, the Prime. Before we get into the Prime, let's go over the history of Ultradot a little bit. So Ultradot's been around since the 1980s. They started making tube sights. They've been really popular with bullseye shooters, Bianchi Cup, handgun hunters, and so forth for a number of reasons. One, they're really tough. They can slide ride these on 1911s and take that beating, which is a big thing back then. Also, the handgun hunters have been abusing them. J.D. Jones runs them on big bores and has since the 1980s. Other handgun hunters have. I've done so. You've seen me hunting with them for years now, even on the big X frames, taking a beating. They just take a beating and they keep on working. Also, they have the best optical glass in the red dot industry. That really clear glass is important for us doing precision work. Also, their adjustments repeat. So like the bullseye Bianchi Cup shooters can dial between yard lines. Our handgun hunters competition shooters and our handgun hunters can dial their drops. Like on this brand new Match Dot 2, their green model is their prototype from earlier this year. You've seen me hunting with a bit. I can dial my drops out to some pretty extreme ranges with it. They just work for a lot of reasons. And they have for decades. So then they started getting into the reflex sights. They first came out with the LT. The LT had a direct Weaver Picatinny type base made right into the sight, so you can mount it on rails like on the front of this Spohr or on your shotgun or whatever else. That wasn't great for the concealed carry market. You know, the concealed carry market wants to mount it as low as possible to the bore, direct mount it and all that stuff. So they needed to make that work. For the Prime, they went with the most common base type that you could have. The Trijicon RMR footprint. That's huge. There's tons of different bases out there available. Everyone makes adapter plates. Say for your revolvers, there's all these base makers out there for Smith & Wesson and so forth. EGW is one that comes to mind. You can buy them for your Ruger, Smith, your Colt, whatever, and mount them right on that wheel gun. Say the adapter plates are out there. You can buy AR high rises, all that stuff. You can make this fit anything. Okay, that's huge. It's also got the same Japanese glass in it, so it's got an extremely clear glass in the front. That's great for precision work. People either like really small dots or somewhere around a 6 minutes, so like 1 to a 6, they went right in the middle. They went right there with 3. So it's 3 small enough to do your precision work and 3 is big enough to do the speed work. That should split the difference there. 3-minute dot should be really good. 1-minute adjustments for the up, down, left, and right there for zeroing it, which is plenty. These dots have had 1-minute adjustments on them since the 80s, and we shoot really far with them and really precise. Big feature they also did there on the back of this sight, on this rear edge, when you carry a sight, you're going to have it rub on your holster, your clothing, whatever. It's going to polish this metal. It's going to get shiny. They serrated the back, so that way when the light's from behind you, it's not going to create glare back in your face. That's huge. It also has a rear sight trough on it, so for a witness trough, so you don't need a backup iron sight on your handgun or whatever. You have something there to help you index the gun on target should your battery die. It has a side load battery tray on it that's with 2 captured screws to hold it in, so it's not going to wiggle or wobble or anything and have any bad connections. It's going to stay put. It is shake awake. It has 10 brightness settings. 10 brightness settings is the same thing that these sights have had. So it goes a lot lower than some of the other ones out there, and then it goes to full brightness for out there in the bright sunlight. This should be great just like these for hunting in low light conditions all the way through midday without a problem. Being able to go down low enough is a failing point for me on the hunting side with a lot of dot sights out there. Since we're focusing on the dot and not like looking through it at the target like speed shooters do, I need that dot to go down really low so it can be almost transparent for my precision work. This does that. Another big thing I tested with is the double dot test. Double dots, when you're looking in the lighting in just a certain way, and it reflects off the back emitter, this back lens in the back where the light's projected to the screen. It'll sometimes create a double dot illusion up there. We have 2 dots. You got to figure out which one to aim at or aim with. I shine this up in the bright sunlight, which that's a good way to check for it. So out there looking at the sun with it and see if it makes a double dot. It didn't do it. It didn't do it in the shop lights. So that's a good sign right off the bat that this is not going to create double dot, or hopefully will not. We got a lot of range testing to do with it. What we're going to be doing with it is, first off, we mount it on a Spohr. I'm going to do some accuracy testing with it and so forth. We're going to have a custom holster made by Nixon Leather to go with it, all that stuff. But it's also, this same sight's going to be mounted on a lot of different guns. And remounting optics is typically what seems to kill them. You're flexing them, bending them, you're pulling on them. So we're going to put it on everything from Desert Eagles to big X frames to lever guns, shotguns, whatever we can put it on. Now we're going to torture test this thing and see how it holds up. Let's say we're going to start off with mounting it on this Spohr. So stand by, and we're going to jump right into the mounting. All right, so let's go into mounting optics on these Spohrs. So right off the bat, they have two basic series of the Spohrs. Is the club editions, which they have the rear sight made into the top strap. That won't work for these. You won't be able to mount these bases on those. This is for the ones that are removable rear sights. So you'll see an LPA assembly like this on the guns. This is the ones that these sight bases work on. These guns take all the Smith & Wesson cut sight bases. Like on this 6-inch competition here, you'll see me running this EGW. Drop right in there, not a problem. And then we're going to be mounting this Alchin RMR type base today. One thing you'll notice is their sight pockets are cut a little tighter than the Smith & Wesson, so you might have to wiggle the base around a little, or maybe take a little metal off of it possibly. Normally on the recoil shields, if you got to take it off back here, this little stop plate, you might have to file some there to get them to line up. In this case, I didn't have to. The screws have to just be perfect, and I have to put them down in order to get it to go on. So first thing we're going to do there is we're going to unload our gun and make sure it's empty. So we visually and physically inspect it, make sure it's unloaded. We're good. We would be taking our rear sight off. This rear sight was on like so. I'm using tools like every gun owner would have at home, not my gunsmith shop stuff. This is just a set of folding Torxes. This took it off just fine. After that's rear sight's removed, I'm then using a cotton swab with 91% alcohol, which you can get at the drugstore, wiping it out, letting it dry. This has already been wiped off and cleaned off and ready to go. The next thing I need my tools to do so. I'm once again using just stuff that every gun owner has. A set of Wheeler screwdrivers. You can get these at the gun shop or any sporting goods store. The Alchin mount still uses flathead screws. So when we size our flathead screwdriver up, we want to make sure that the width fits the slot as full as possible and the thickness as well. That'll keep you from stripping out the screw head. We also need an Allen driver. Obviously make sure that's the right size and fits. I'm using thread locker. I'm using red because I don't intend to take this off. It takes heat to remove red thread locker. If you intend to remove this, you need to use blue. Blue you'll be able to get out with just some force. A little heat might help you as well, but it's not necessary to do so. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to place our mount on here. And once again, I'm doing this without in the shop, I normally use a vise. I'm doing this like I'd expect you to do it at home. We're just going to start our screws because this fits tighter than say it would on like a Smith & Wesson. Their pockets tighter on these. There's a little less play. And we're just going to start our screws in here. And you see they're still sticking up proud. I'm just barely putting them in there to start out, making sure everything lines up. And now I'll start tightening them down. So a little easier to hold it like so for me. A whole lot easier putting a bench vise into it. But once again, we're going to do this just like you would at home. And they're regular 648 screws in these top straps. They didn't do a metric or anything. Everything will fit in there just fine that comes with, say, the EGW, the Alchin, or whatever other brand of scope base you use. Any Smith & Wesson scope base will fit these. For the drilled and tapped model Smith, so all the scope bases for all the newer model ones will fit. And it'd be the same thing for rear sight bases and stuff too. So that's why the LPA fits. It looks like they are cut to take the regular Smith & Wesson spring style rear sights. If you really wanted to put one in there, I have not tried one. So I'm going to turn. Now I'm using a flathead, so I'm not really using a torque driver on these. I'm just turning until I feel it completely stop. Very scientific approach. But this is how I'd expect most people to mount them at home. That's what we're doing. Next, I'm going to put my driver on there, my Allen driver. I would normally also red Loctite these on here, but we are going to be removing this and running this on multiple guns. So these are going to actually... Alright, so the Alchin screws that came with it actually weren't long enough. I had to run out to the shop there and find some 632 screws that were a little longer. That's the Alchin factory screws. Here's the ones I went out and found. These work fine. Once again, I'm going to put this sight on without any Loctite for the sight itself, since we intend to swap this around different guns and abuse the heck out of it. I want to be able to get it back off of here. So once again, I just run the screws in until they just firm up a little bit. So they start making shoulder contact. I'm not torquing them down yet. And I'm using just the tools like I'd expect a gun owner to have at home. Not my gunsmith shop stuff, not a torque wrench. I'm using my basic stuff here. And it's going to mount this optic just fine. Now I'm torquing them. These Wheeler bits do get a little more sticky in screw slots and stuff than, say, a really good set of ground bits would, but they work. So now we're all mounted up. I can actually, that rear sight notch, even with a really tall base on a revolver, I could still reference my front sight with that notch. So let's get it out to the range, get it zeroed, give some initial impressions on it. All right, so I'm out here in the setting sun with the Spohr 283 carry with the Ultradot optics, brand new prime. Giving it a go, getting a feel for the sight, just zeroing at 15 yards, just freehand stuff, just getting used to it all. Been shooting my hunting handguns all winter, just getting reacquainted with the 283 carrier from Spohr. I'm using cutting edge bullets, 140 grain PhD line of ammunition, great accurate ammo. Got a whole lot to do with this, and a whole lot more coming up. So stand by, give us a like and subscribe. We're going to be testing this on a whole lot of guns over the coming weeks. We're going to put this thing through its paces and see how it does.